Welcome to a special edition of Trekzone's Talking Science, coming to you from the 76th International Astronautical Congress happening in Sydney. This is only the third time the conference has been held in Australia. Melbourne in 1999, Adelaide in 2017, and in fact it's only the fifth time that it's been held in the Southern Hemisphere. So certainly want to be seeing more of these type of events happening. It's a meeting of the minds. All of these great delegates are here. We've got the Turkish Space Agency, we've got the United Arab Emirates, the UK Space Agency, NASA's here, the Australian Space Agency, as well as all of the friends that we've made here on Talkin' Science as well. Putting this special edition of Talkin' Science together today because a very special press conference was just held with a massive announcement for good friends of the channel, Southern Launch, and new friends of the channel, Varda Space Industries.
I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the lands on which we're meeting today. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and I extend that respect to any First Nations people joining us. I'd particularly like to acknowledge the deep cultural and scientific knowledge that's held by Australia's First Nations peoples that enabled them to live on these lands sustainably for tens of thousands of years. I was very excited to hear the messages from the plenary session yesterday that spoke about the opportunities that were available from bringing together Western and Indigenous knowledge systems for a sustainable space future. And I hope that many of you also heard that message. My name's Alistair Kay, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the Australian Space Agency stand for this Australian spaceflight event. What we hope to do today is to highlight to you the opportunities that there are from conducting spaceflight in Australia. We'll kick off, we'll have two companies talking to you. We'll have Varda Space and We'll have Varda Space and Southern Launch, and I'll pay for that later, I'm sure. And Southern Launch, who have direct experience in returning and launching from Australian soil. We'll then take a break for some questions, and before we hear from the Bureau of Meteorology about some of the services that they can provide for spaceflight. And then we'll hear from our Office of the Space Regulator about what you can consider as you're conducting spaceflight activities. But before I begin, I'd like to introduce Enrico Palermo, Head of the Australian Space Agency, to say a few words. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, Alistair. And what a tremendous turnout. Thank you for joining us for the agency's Launch and Returns event at IAC 2025. We have a couple of very distinguished guests here at the front I want to introduce. We have Lisa Davidson, who's the Acting Space Commander. It's great. We have a great partnership with Space Command and CJC at the agency, and we're pleased to host you here today. And let me introduce Professor Ruben Bolt. Ruben was one of the extraordinary Indigenous leaders that helped us develop the host plenary session last night, and sits on the Prime Minister's National Science and Technology Council. So wonderful to have you here, Ruben, as well. So in the opening ceremony, there was the video that showed Australia up front. It had a great beat to it. That's a strong song called Great Southern Land. And I think Great Southern Land, as a phrase, is what we offer the world in launch and returns. Australia was there at the beginning of the space age. We were one of the first nations to see a satellite manufactured, or Australian satellite launched from Australia into space more than 50 years ago. And we're pleased to see ESA celebrating its 50th anniversary, and we were part of those early days. But then we had a gap. But that gap is now closed, and the message we want to convey to the international space community in many ways is Australia is open for business for launch and returns. We want to partner with the world to enable you to do science, to launch things to space, to do on-orbit manufacturing and return it safely. And so we've had a tremendous 18 months, I think, of progress. And if you indulge with me, I'll run through some of the firsts and achievements. But this is very much a Team Australia effort. We have entrepreneurs like Southern Launch, like Gilmore and others that are developing vehicles, developing spaceports. And it's also a whole of government effort. And I'd be remiss not to acknowledge the great work of Austrade, who've done a lot to build partnerships and strengthen that. Our partners within the Bureau of Meteorology that you'll hear from shortly, and many of the other co-regulator agencies from CASA, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, AMPSA and others. So this is very much an all-of-government effort and a Team Australia effort, and I want to thank them. But let me rapidly walk you through all the things that have happened in 18 months. We saw Australia's first high-powered rocket launch under our legislation. It was a German company called High Impulse doing a suborbital test at the Kaniba test range. We awarded the first orbital spaceport license. So the Australian Space Agency is the regulator for space activities in Australia, and we awarded that to Gilmore Space Technologies up in Bowen in Queensland, followed by their first launch attempt you would have seen in July. And we really commend the team at Gilmore for the first launch attempt of a domestically manufactured 3-stage rocket. It was a wonderful milestone. They're learning from what happened in that test flight and taking it forward. We also were the first nation to authorize a commercial return into a commercial spaceport. And we didn't do it once, we authorized it 3 times. It was a multi-mission return, and we're really proud of the team at Varda Space Industries and Southern Launch for doing that historic return. And I'm sure Eric will talk about the profound science that happened on that first return. The other thing is that we signed a treaty-level agreement with the US, and I just had the pleasure to sign another one a few hours ago with Secretary Duffy, but that was the Technology Safeguards Agreement. So this is an instrumental treaty-level agreement that allows US companies to bring their technology to Australia. We're trusted to protect that sensitive technology, and we see that providing market access and opportunities. As we do with the new agreement we're negotiating with the European Space Agency that was also announced this week, the cooperative agreement, to provide access, to provide opportunities for tests and evaluation. So that's all happened in 18 months. Hopefully that conveys to the global community we're open for business. Our sparsely populated land and coastlines, our low marine traffic, our low air traffic, our wonderful weather and climate, all part of this great southern land, why we're open for business. So really pleased you're here. There's some really exciting stuff you're going to hear, so stay here and stay tuned. But thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Enrico. I'd now like to invite Mr. Eric Lasker. Oh, I had a misspelling in my, yeah, exactly. We were debating about the name tag, do we do it on or off? And clearly we should have had it on. Yeah. Chief Revenue Officer of Varda Space Industries. Eric, I was going to try and talk a little bit about Varda for you, but I don't think I should. What I will do is ask you to tell us a little bit about Varda Space and why you chose Australia as a return destination. Thanks, Eric.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'll talk just a minute about Varda, and then we'll get into some updates that we have over from our end. So Varda Space Industries was founded about 4.5 years ago, really to bring the research that has been conducted on the International Space Station to the commercial market. So really getting out of that loop that we've been on as an industry for the past 50 years, where we'll do small pieces of science up in microgravity, but then have no through line to bring it to commercial markets that then can create the flywheel to a true low Earth orbit economy. And so when we set out to build the company, we saw 2 central challenges with building this. The first was just an access to microgravity at the speed and cadence that the commercial markets would expect if they were to do that work anywhere down on the ground. If you only have access to a factory, let's say 2 times a year, you're probably not going to use that factory very often. And so when we set out, we determined that we needed a high cadence re-entry capability that we can launch as many times as industry demands, and then bring that down so then all of the products that are manufactured in microgravity that, say, pharmaceutical companies want to rely on, that fiber optics companies want to rely on, that semiconductors companies want to rely on, can actually be economically viable for the first time. And so the first piece of that was to build our W series vehicle. This is W3 actually, so the third one that we brought down since the founding of the company. This one landed in Southern Launch. And to take you back though to when we first launched the W1, Winnebago 1, we had all intentions of operating in the US to bring high cadence re-entry to US soil. We in fact landed the first W series out in Utah. Through that experience, it became pretty clear that the US was not going to be the location for high cadence re-entry operations in the near term. And so while we were in this route of having our vehicle in space, we started looking at where is an agency, where is a state that we can start to look towards a world where re-entry is not only as common as launch, but hopefully even more common than launch, and that is not just land, but also a willingness and a want to actually perform those operations. And in very short order, we were introduced to the folks down in South Australia, the folks over at Southern Launch, and so we have a great partnership, and we'll be talking a bit more about that today.
Thanks, Eric. I'm Rebecca Darcy, COO and CFO of Southern Launch. We've had a wonderful partnership with Varda since we began. I think one of my favourite conversations with Varda was when we were discussing the air traffic restrictions in Australia and why it might be a good idea for them to return to our range, the Kniba test range with Southern Launch. And Varda asked us how we communicate with all of the different aviation agencies and consultative groups in Australia. And we said, what? And they said, no, how do you communicate with them? There's so many and you need to get them on side. And we said, oh, we just call them up. There's like 3 or 4 airlines and we just ring them and we can coordinate your return. And that's what we do. A number of times we've had 2 returns for Varda. We had the first one in February of this year. It was the first commercial spacecraft to land at a commercial spaceport. That was a pretty big feat for not only Southern Launch, but Varda as well, and also the agency. We had some wonderful support for them. And as Enrico said, that was a 3 series permit. So after that first one, we returned the second capsule within 10 weeks of that first return, which was sort of this one, starting to demonstrate that really high cadence. And to back that up, we've got hopefully 2 more returns before the end of the year, which is really exciting, and some really great work going on with Varda and the agency. For those that don't know what else Southern Launch does, we operate 2 ranges in South Australia. One of them is the Kniba test range, which we utilise for suborbital flight and re-entries from space. We run that in partnership with the Kniba Aboriginal community, and it's a really wonderful partnership. If people haven't had time, then they should definitely go and experience the Southern Launch stand, in that you get a real vibe for what it is like to work with Southern Launch and the Kniba community, and what it means to both us and them to work together on such a significant aspect of Australia's space future. We also operate the Whalers Way Orbital Launch Complex, which is right down the bottom of Australia, launching south towards Antarctica. We have direct access to polar and sun-synchronous orbits down there, which is a wonderful place to launch from. I don't want to talk too much more about Southern Launch. I think I'm going to hand back to Eric for a fun announcement.
Yeah, thanks, Bax. Yeah, the partnership has been really incredible with Southern Launch and with South Australia, and I'm really happy to announce today that we are extending that partnership, because nothing says low Earth orbit economy, not 1 flight, not 2 flight, not 3 flight, but 4, but extending out to 20 more re-entries through the end of 2028, really making Southern Launch in South Australia and Australia the home of the LEO economy. So thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Beck and Eric. Are there any questions from anyone? Does someone want to adjust the 2? Maybe. I'll open for questions. How long does it take? Yeah, what did you say? You're going to extend to 50? Was that? I think that 20. Thanks. Question, brilliant. Thank you.
He asked which payloads we are carrying on the capsule. Okay, so this is a multi-use vehicle, right, as with any space vehicle. So we can carry quite a bit. We have internal pharmaceutical research that we are carrying on every single vehicle, partnering with both external pharma partners, which we'll be announcing actually later this year, and some internal work. And then on top of that, and it turns out when you build a very cheap, high cadence re-entry vehicle, there are other folks that want to use that capability. And so we are flying both Defense Department payloads to study hypersonic or re-entry flight. We are also carrying, let's say, university and NASA projects that want access to microgravity environment to just utilize the vehicle, get their samples back at the other side. But the main drive and really the North Star of Varda is to bring pharmaceuticals made in microgravity to help people back down on Earth.
Thanks, Eric. Yes?
To what extent was the TSA
The question was, to what extent was the Technology Safeguards Agreement useful to you to complete the deal?
Quite useful. I mean, anything like that's going to smooth out the process for us is that is always helpful. And so to the extent of that, there are definitely, my colleague Josh Martin back here can kind of get into the details of it. But again, I mean, it all goes into site selection and where we want to continue operations. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Anyone else? Great, Eric and Beck, and I believe Lloyd is going to join us at some point as well, who may be stuck at a baggage carousel. But we'll be around the stand if anyone wants to ask any follow-up questions from here. I'd now like to bring up to the stage Sarah Reeves, the Space Sector Engagement Lead. Thank you very much, both of you. Sarah is the Space Sector Lead for the Bureau of Meteorology. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about the Bureau and the services that you offer to Australia's spaceflight?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to the agency for having us along today, and congratulations to Southern and Varda on the announcement. That's fantastic news. Louder? Okay. So the Bureau of Meteorology, for those that don't know, looking around the audience, I'm guessing many of you do, but we are Australia's national weather, water, climate, oceans, and space weather agency, information agency. So we've been working really closely over the last 3 years with Australian spaceports, with the Australian Space Agency, and with the spaceflight sector more generally to really understand their operations, to understand what their needs are, and how we can support them in those spaceflight activities. And so we've recently launched our Australian Spaceflight Weather Service, and what our spaceflight service does is to combine weather, what we tend to refer to as terrestrial weather, and space weather data all together in one service. So this is information that the Bureau has been trusted to provide for decades now, but really we're bringing that together in a single service, tailored specifically to the needs of the space sector. So we're very excited about that. I'm sure I don't need to tell the kinds of people that are assembled here today how important that weather and space weather information is to all of the different stages of space flight. You need accurate weather data when you're selecting your launch windows. Once you're up in orbit, that space weather data to protect your expensive satellite or payload from incoming space weather to know when that's going to hit. And then, of course, if you're returning something back down to Earth, then you care about that ground-based weather again for your recovery and trajectory predictions. So some of the kinds of activities that we have supported so far, we supported Southern with both of the Varda returns to the Caniba test range, and about a year before that with the high impulse launch that Enrico mentioned before. We know that Gilmore Space Technologies were using all of our weather forecasts and products that we've provided to them in that critical countdown to T0 when they were being hammered by the upper atmosphere winds, trying to make a decision whether to hit the big red button or not. And of course, we have a really strong relationship with Equatorial Launch Australia as well, and other emerging spaceports in Australia. So that's kind of launch and return activities. On the space weather side of things, we work hand in hand with the Bureau's Australian Space Weather Forecasting Centre. So they put out space weather forecasts, alerts, warnings, so that if you're operating a satellite in orbit, you know when that space weather is coming in, and you can take mitigating actions. You can change your orbit if need, put your satellite into safe mode to protect from incoming space weather. We also do space domain awareness and space situational awareness work, which has included supporting the JCO, which is the Joint Commercial Operations, a global SDA network led by the US Space Force. And we also we can help if you're operating a satellite in orbit and you experience some kind of anomaly. We can look at what the space weather conditions were and help you understand whether that space weather might have been a cause or whether you need to look to other explanations. So those are some examples of the kinds of activities that we've supported in the past. For spaceports, we can create a custom decision portal with all of your weather and space weather needs in one place, localized to your spaceport location. We can connect you with one of our expert meteorologists or space weather forecasters to provide bespoke forecasts and weather balloons. We know how important those winds are, so we can launch weather balloons on demand to assist with your operations as well. So in short, anything that you're doing in terms of spaceflight, the Bureau has information and services that can help you with your operations to manage those, to manage your risks, and ensure the safe, efficient, sustainable operations of your company into the future. So I'll be around and with my colleague Tori as well, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Sarah. Before I throw to Office of the Space Regulator, luckily the baggage carousel was relatively quick, but the carpet isn't. I'd just like to introduce Lloyd Damp, CEO of Southern Launch, a company that he founded 8 years ago. So that's a relatively short time to get to where you are today, Lloyd. If I could just get you to say a few words, that'd be fantastic.
Thanks everyone for coming along today. First off, I'd like to thank Varda Space Industries for the long-term partnership that we are entering into today. Very historic moment. And also I'd like to thank the Office of the Space Regulator here at the Australian Space Agency for their progressive approach to space regulation and for making the regular return of space capsules a reality. So thank you, Chris, Adam, and the team for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lloyd. Always take some compliments. Thanks, Lloyd. That's great. I'd now like to introduce Adam Clash. Adam is the Director of Regulatory Operations at the Office of the Space Regulator in the Australian Space Agency. Adam, can you tell us a little bit about the Office of the Space Regulator's role and what considerations you need as you're launching from Australia?
Thank you, Alistair. And I don't often get a chance to speak to a whole group of people about regulations, which is an exciting opportunity to say the least. I hope people are excited about it. It is 4 o'clock or close to on a Tuesday. No, look, it's great to be here and thank you very much. And I just wanted to sort of give a bit of an introduction, a bit of an overview about how we regulate space activities in Australia. As Alistair said, I work within the Office of the Space Regulator, which is the regulatory arm of our space agency. We regulate activities under the Space Launches and Returns Act, which is our piece of legislation which guides us in all of our activities. And more importantly, it has a set of objectives which I think are sometimes unique when it comes to regulation. Thank you very much for that tip. I've got to keep it closer to my mouth or speak and project a little bit louder. But the objectives of the Space Launches Returns Act are threefold. One is obviously to establish a way in which we can regulate our activities. The second and important one is actually how we can balance entrepreneurship and removing barriers to entry to space activities and helping grow our sector with that of the safety of space. And then lastly, another important factor that we do as an agency is actually making sure that we uphold our international obligations. Australia is a signatory to all of our space treaties, and we make sure through our regulation that we are abiding by that. And what do we do? What do we license? I know that probably a lot of people here understand all those different aspects, but we license launch facilities such as the Kaniba Test Range. We might do launches and returns as well, as you've already heard from Varda. We also do things like high power rockets, which is a high impulse launch we've done. We do a lot of different aspects. One of the things that often gets overlooked is we also license people sending satellites overseas to be launched overseas through what we call an overseas payload permitting process. That is to help us keep our obligations under our treaties, And like many complex activities, we need to coordinate across government, and we need to make sure that we're talking to our state and federal regulators as well, whether that be our environmental or defence and export controls. There's lots of different pieces of that puzzle, and we, as OSR, like to make sure that we're keeping all of those things together, and we make sure that we're helping our industry get through that process, because it can be quite a complex and difficult process to get through. But one that we're here to help, and one we want to try and foster and encourage our sector to grow. The other things I would like to talk about is obviously not only do we work across government and make sure that our state and federal governments are talking together, but we also work internationally as well. So Varda here obviously is an international company that's working with the FAA, so we have to really work closely with them to make sure that our regulations are aligned and making sure that we're streamlining that process to allow activities to occur in Australia. And look, I've only got a small bit of time, so I won't keep talking about this. I am really excited about regulation. I want to make sure that everyone here is excited about regulation. I think it is an enabler of our activities. We are constantly evolving it. We have opportunities to engage with our regulations through things like our Space Regulation Advisory Collective, which you can look at on our website. You can be part of that process as it evolves and changes over time. But also you can come and talk to us here at ISE. So we are here all the time on the stand, but we also have a dedicated session as well on Thursday from 9 till 10. If you are looking to conduct an activity here in Australia, please come and speak with us. We can give you insights into what you might need in a regulatory sense and help you make that process as smooth as possible. So anyway, thank you very much, Alistair, and I hope to see you and speak to you soon.
Thanks, Adam.
So incredible news coming out of the 76th International Astronautical Congress. Southern Launch and Varda Space Industries have signed on for 20 more capsule returns. On top of the 2 more that are remaining for this year, it's a 3-year extension of the partnership, and incredible news. A huge congratulations to good friends of the channel, Southern Launch, and of course new friends of the channel, Varda Space Industries. There's so much happening here at the conference. We're going to be spending a couple of weeks releasing content from here. Vertical videos, horizontal videos, long form interviews, short form interviews, new kinds of stuff as well. Let's find where the audience is and really show you all the stuff that's been happening here at this conference. Now, I caught up with Amy just a short time after that press conference, before they were all jumping in an Uber to head out to a birthday party for Southern Launch. So a happy birthday, Southern Launch. But here's my chat after that press conference with Amy Featherston. We say it's a capsule return, but there's a lot that goes into it as well, isn't there?
Yeah, so it's 2 companies coming together working in partnership. So Varda are responsible for their capsule. The next mission actually uses their own satellite bus, which they have developed. So they're taking care of everything up in orbit, and then we take care of everything back on Earth. So we coordinate all the regulatory approvals for them, along with managing airspace, maritime traffic, and then coordinating the actual collection of the capsule from the Kaniva test range.
Now, we've seen those pictures, we've covered them on Talking Science. It's incredible to see, and to see it in person here now at IAC as well.
Yeah, so excited for you to be able to see Winnie up close and personal. We get quite attached to the capsules when they come back to Earth. So Winnie 2 landed back in February, Winnie 3, who's here today, landed in May, and then we should have W4 and W5 before the end of this year.
It's awesome news. We are going to be back and experiencing this interactive display as well. Plenty more to see at IAC, but this is the breaking news from today.
It is indeed, and pretty awesome for Australia as a nation. It definitely puts us as the global home for in-space returns.
Looking forward to catching up with Southern Launch. Hopefully they're not too bleary-eyed in the next couple of days. There's more conference to be held. I want to check out that interactive display as well. And I also want to check in with Varda and congratulate them as well, and also show you up close and personal with W2 Winnie, the capsule. It's on display. It's incredible to be so close to it, given that was in orbit just a few short months ago. We were also there for the signing of the framework between NASA NASA's Sean Duffy, the acting administrator Sean Duffy, and the Australian Space Agency's head Enrico Palermo. They signed a framework agreement which extends on from the Technology Safeguards Agreement that was signed in 2024.
Listen, it's good to be here with Palermo and to announce our partnership in this framework to bring our countries closer together in space exploration. It's an important framework as we move forward. As two aligned countries, we're aligned in so many different parts of our economy and our strategy, but to take this step today with this framework in regard to space is critically important, and we've appreciated the partnership thus far, but this framework takes us another step further in our cooperation together in space.
Thank you, Secretary Duffy, and welcome to the NASA delegation that is here in Australia with us. We are very pleased to see our Minister, the Minister for Industry and Innovation and Industry, and the Minister for Science, Senator Honourable Tim Ayres, announced that the US and Australia had agreed text on what we call the Space Framework Agreement. From Australia's perspective, this builds on a long and enduring partnership that our nations have had together in space for more than half a century. And very much a nesting of many agreements and developments. We signed or had our Parliament ratify the Technology Safeguards Agreement about 12 months ago. We've also seen a variety of export control reforms that allows us to partner on critical technologies together. So this Space Framework Agreement builds on that. It's about an umbrella cooperative agreement that will provide access to Australian researchers, academia, and industry, as well as US counterparts to collaborate on major projects as the US returns to the moon and beyond. So we couldn't be more privileged on behalf of the Australian government to sign this agreement today, and really want to give my thanks to the teams on the US and the Australian sides that have worked really hard behind the scenes to bring it together.
If I can make one other point, the opening ceremonies yesterday, you did a great job talking about the great history that Australia has in space. And again, this is just one more step in growing your program and growing the partnership, which we think is so important. Again, great allies working together, not just on Earth, but in space, is critical. And so we appreciate it. We're hoping to spend more money. We all are about getting more money into our budgets. It's a conversation that both countries have. It's an important conversation. We don't get exploration, but for having our governments be willing to spend money on science and exploration, and again, the both of us doing that together is going to be important. And this is a critical step forward in making that happen. So should we sit down and
let's do it
and sign? All right, we'll switch. Then I think we'll trade. There we go, the framework.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Congratulations.
So much more to show you from the International Astronautical Congress here in Sydney. You're just going to have to subscribe to be a member to get first release. That's at the trek.zone/support, or like, follow and subscribe on our social media, because it'll eventually be released to the public. Nothing behind a paywall here at Trekzone. So catch all of that wherever you get social. For now though, this is a special edition of Trekzone's Talkin' Science from the 76th International Astronautical Congress.